Hey there, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George Affleck.
And it's time for...
unSpun.
You forgot your ears!
Oh yeah!
Wait.
Spun. For those, yes. That was to McLean. Big ears.
I really hope McLean...
Mickey McLean? No, was it McLean Mouse? No.
Yeah.
Yes.
McLean Mouse.
Our boss, I guess, as it were.
Yeah.
From the Orca.
The Orca.ca.
If you watch
He's the editor-in-chief.
if you watch, we've got this battle going now, and last night I mentioned his headset that he wears, which is actually even I think they're bigger than these. Yeah. And he wears them on their podcast, which is if you have to watch it, you can't hear it because you can't hear his headphones. But they are, I'm sure they sound great to him, but they're giant. That's
a good point. You have to watch at the Orca.ca. You can download the podcast like BC Poly Hot Stove or Unspun. You can download, maybe you're just listening to us on Spotify right now. I had a friend of mine, Hayden O'Brien. She's 11 and she's a subscriber because she feels she must be informed about local politics. Yeah, she asked me, can you give me a shout out? I'm like, yes, I can, Hayden O'Brien. So we were going through the process for her. She's like, I'd like to be able to watch it though. So you can watch it at the Orca.ca.
Yeah.
But
on
listen,
YouTube.
Yes, on YouTube, exactly. But you can listen in other places. And you want to be tuned in because we are talking about things that in a noisy universe of US politics and global politics and oh man, it's so much. We've got to stay up to date on what's happening in our backyard, or in some cases, at our beaches. I'm still on the sewers thing.
Oh boy.
I am.
You're going to get me swear again? Is that the plan?
You said shit like 3 times last week.
I said shit and bullshit.
That didn't take long, did it? Okay, but the sewer update, I spoke with John Cooper.
I'm quoting myself though. That doesn't count.
Well, wait till I start mentioning your Twitter handle, because that's what Jordan Bateman is also.
I've never had a nickname before. This is
my
it's a sports people thing. They love nicknames.
We just call him underscore because his handle is George
underscore
Affleck. You'll never forget George's Twitter handle. Okay, so I did speak with, in all seriousness, I spoke with John Cooper.
Yes.
Stand-up human, park board commissioner.
Should have been the mayor of Vancouver. Could have been. Would have been.
Just saying.
MPA. Anyways.
You know what I love about John Cooper, without being political, in the sense of just as a born and raised Vancouverite, he does the work on the things that I feel like, wow, we really need to do something about that. And
pragmatic leadership.
Yes.
Nothing fancy.
Nothing fancy.
Get down, get it done.
And he
saved the Bloedel Conservatory single-handedly. Well, actually not true. He worked with a big group, but he actually fought that big time, saved that beautiful site.
Gorgeous.
Got him into politics, which maybe he regrets.
But he is somebody, he's got so much humility, because even in speaking with him, because I was filling in for Simi Sarah on CKNW earlier today, so welcome to my 6th hour of radio. But I got to speak with John.
Still fresh, though.
And thank you for, you came on too.
I did.
Totally fresh.
Our second date for today.
But there are a couple of things that John was saying. First thing he said was, I'd like to praise city engineers for their hard work. Of course, because he's not cast in stones here from a glass house or conservatory. But what he was saying is the timing of fixing our sewer system that is paired. What are they called? Shared.
Well, you have a single line basically of the crap and the rainwater that comes through off the roads and stuff going into one pipe. 5
outlets in False Creek that are spewing that overflow of raw sewage with rainwater into False Creek, which is leading to our beaches being closed, which is what the jumping off point was for me. It's fine for me to know not to go in that water, but I feel bad for the mom with 2 toddlers that isn't listening to Unspun or reading a newspaper and heading down to the beach and going, sure, kids, swim away.
Yeah, telling your kids not to go dive in the water. Yeah, good luck with that.
Oh, man. So the sewer update from John Cooper, the target was 2050 to get our sewer upgrades completed.
Been that target for quite a long time.
And now it looks like the math because we're 50% done, but not getting enough done per year to hit the 2050 target. Like, we're behind on the 2050. He's like, let's move it up. I said, let's prioritize. But I learned something big from him today, is there are certain areas of that 50%. It's not like downtown is only half done. Downtown's good, like where that extra density and those huge buildings are going in. Don't get me started on towers. The sewer systems are all organized.
Yes, because it's a designed community and was built with that density in mind, so the sewage system was put in place properly.
So I suggested to John maybe informing the public of where those sewer systems need to be upgraded. And because if I lived in False Creek and I've got a flyer that actually said, you're one of the communities that needs this upgrade done, and we can do it piecemeal, one street at a time over 10 years, or we can really go hard in 2 years and probably screw up your parking for the entire time or whatever it is.
Well, you're getting around.
Exactly.
That's certainly the backlash I've seen of people who are opposed to this. First of all, the price is going to be huge. But there's also people saying, but I won't be able to get around in my car. And I'm feeling like, well, you know what? I think if you do a year of torture as opposed to 20 or 30 years of shit going into our water so our kids can't swim, I'll take the year of pain. Torture. I'll take the pain.
For infrastructure like this, I think we are all a bit desensitized, or perhaps feeling overdone, or how about overtaxed as a word, for these projects that are kind of willy-nilly, and it happens, and now it's a bike lane, and we're putting in suicide fencing on the Burrard Street Bridge. Oh, it needs new lamps. Oh, now we're putting a bike lane down Granville Street. Oh, we're going to da-da-da-da. Vancouverites, if you said, you know what, our sewage is going into our ocean water, people would be like, oh, okay.
I'm not getting into the bicycle debate, but cyclists represent 5 to 8% or whatever the number is of people who, which is great. But sewers.
So everybody.
Guess what? I'm pretty sure I don't know anyone who doesn't sit on a toilet and do those things.
Way to put a bow on it, George. Way to just like whoop, toot toot. Everybody.
I am a guy.
Like 1 foot at a time.
I have 2 boys.
Yeah.
It's big subject matter in our house.
Seat down. Seat down. Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
I know. So I'm of the mindset of let's do this. And if people are pushing back on why we shouldn't fix our sewage problem that is causing health risks, because in my column last week, I told the story of a kid who shall remain nameless, but he's a university student who works one of the ferries.
Yes.
And literally all of the ferry drivers, the pilots of those little Granville Island, one of the 2 companies, all of them went down with like a horrific stomach bug in the same day because they were pulling the ropes.
Of course. Right.
And they weren't washing their hands before eating. So guys.
Okay, wash our hands. The other thing is that a lot of backlash we got on this issue and people are getting is, hey, well, the boats are dumping a lot of this. And there's a lot of data saying it's these boats that are dumping their sewage from the boats. There are regulations for that exist. I would say that the city is a hypocrite for not, do as I say, not as I do. Is what is that saying? Is that right?
That's right. Okay. Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah. Come on. You can sit there and police the boats that are, and which you can do, but meanwhile,
to a degree, it's like the kid that stops swimming in the middle of the pool.
But if I'm a boat guy, I'm going,
they peed. Yeah. They're not supposed to pee in the pool, but they did. That happens with boaters all the time.
There's that chlorine that can make it all go red.
No, it doesn't. That's a whole. That's what
is that a myth?
That's what you tell kids to scare them.
Oh,
where are you at, George?
That's why I've never peed in a pool.
_.
I've always been worried about that. Anyway, so I would say that first, let's get it right. The city, do your job, and then you can go out there and judge other people.
So we'll put that on the shelf and get an update from John on that, but he's put the motion forward. He's got support of others. Sarah Young has mentioned it as well. Yes.
I'm glad to see that council now will, because the money comes from council. The park board has no real control over the sewers. They are controlling the beaches, and they're going, hello.
That's the initial jumping off point is that John Cooper was getting attacked as park board commissioner when he's like, sewers are not my thing, it's their thing. But I'd like the park to open.
Yes, so we'll see how that goes. It won't, I imagine, come because they're finishing up the council for the season. So I doubt we'll see much on this until the fall.
Right.
But there must be money available through the federal government, through all sorts of things. Let's get on this.
Let's get on the sewer thing. And what about the city plan?
Shit or get off the pot, as it were. Got it.
We could almost just stop this podcast now. No. We've got stuff to talk about because city plan, there's a vote tonight as we're taping this. I want an explanation from you on what city plan and what do you think is going to happen?
Well, city plan is the impossible dream in my mind. There is kind of two city plans that exist in Vancouver, and every city is required to have kind of a planning process for their cities, but Vancouver is very unique in about 100 years ago, they had this thing called the Bartholomew Plan, which was a city plan which is designed for the whole city, where the buildings would be, how the streets would be designed, all that stuff, where the transportation infrastructure would be, all that stuff. But it was over 100 years ago. And so then there was a plan that was done in the early 90s, with Gordon Campbell was the mayor. It's called City Plan, and it was there's a lot of public engagement. They had 3 concepts, and then people voted on it, and then they chose the one that was the most popular, and then implemented it. And it's more of a visioning process. That one, it's sort of big picture. It doesn't have specific, the zoning will be this or that. This plan that they brought forward this week is really the beginning of a process to put a city plan, a new robust city plan that would include zoning and how our streets would be designed and where transportation would go and all those things into one big fancy plan, so that we would have continuity and we would know a blueprint for our city for the future, for the next 30 to 50 years. The challenge is, first of all, the price tag is at $18 million. And the suggested timeline to the price to do the plan, $18 million.
Just to put the paper down?
To write the whole thing out and do all the consultation.
Seems spendy.
And of course it's government, and so 18 million in 4 years. Let's just multiply that by 2. So you're going to have, first of all, 4 years from now they'll be in the midst of that plan in an election cycle, 2022 election. So at that point, if they're they'll probably maybe hide the money, but if they're at 20 million or 30, now you've got an election issue. You're going, what the hell? You're spending a lot of our money, which is never good for politicians. And it's just like, is this thing going to be what people believe? I'm skeptical that this is the solution, that the panacea that will be the solution to I'm skeptical because because it requires the price tag, and then it goes over several councils.
Right, and who's going to be in charge then? And they'll be like, I don't like that park there, and I want a bigger building there, and I don't want that to be zoned that way, and da-da-da. $18 million or $36 million over 8 years would be a pain in the...
It's getting back down to the bottom, and also it's freezing a lot of our development that's going on. So for the people who are supplyists who want more housing in the city, supply, this is restricting potentially that, because we're waiting for this magical plan to come to us.
It's a reason to not take action.
It really, I think, will slow down action in our city.
It's going to pass.
We're recording on Wednesday. It goes to vote tonight, unless they don't get it done. They have some more speakers to get through, and I can't see it failing. There are probably a million amendments. They might deal with the price tag, how that price tag will be worked out. So we'll see that tomorrow. So if you're watching this Thursday or Friday, you'll know. So it'll be interesting, but I'm very skeptical that this is going to be a black pit of cash from the taxpayers to pay for something that won't actually solve what I think people think it will solve.
So if you want to stay up on this moving forward, a good idea is to go to the orca.ca and subscribe to the Fin. I love my Fin. When I wake up in the morning and McLean K has already put together my list of required reading as a citizen of British Columbia.
News planner.
Yeah, but I mean, because it covers all media. Yeah. It tells you what the big splash is, like the big story of the day and some other things, and that you'll find UnSpun podcast in there or the middle or whatever. Mm-hmm. But it's got that good piece of intel, so I think the city plan news will be in there.
I would think so. Yes, I think there'll be lots. Yeah, so subscribe to it and get that up-to-date information about the city plan.
Can we talk about the property tax problem with the
that's also this week,
highest and best use? People
yes, Sarah Kirby-Young, I think, is bringing a motion forward with that.
I went to the end of our street to go to one of our favorite little mom and pop restaurants that was called the Ramen House, but it was like a Chinese restaurant, and the woman and the man, the couple who owned it, she was front of house and cooked, and he cooked, and she served. Like it was just, it was as mom and pop.
They can't find staff either.
Well, there's that as well. Mm-hmm. But they was my boy's favorite place to go. If you asked him where do you want to go for dinner, Ramen House. So we went to go for dinner one night, papered up, shuttered, no sign, nothing, no warning, nothing. They just basically went, can't do it, because the highest best use on that block would probably be a 14-story building.
This building we're sitting in right now.
Oh, yeah?
It's my office, and it's a 2-story building on
Curve
Broadway.
Communications.
And underneath is a bank, where they have an endless amount of cash down there, so I guess they don't care.
No.
But our rent is now, so we have a lease triple net. So the triple net is basically your base rent, your lease, taxes, and then costs of operations for the building. So that's the triple things, 3 things.
Yep.
Taxes, so I can control my lease. I have it negotiated every 5 or so years. I get my rate. I know what it is. The service fees, the cost of the building kind of stays pretty much the same. The taxes, though, have gone up ridiculous because this building is zoned 8 stories. And
so you're paying for the air above you.
We're
that's
paying
not
for the air
developed.
above us. So 2 of us, two tenants, one downstairs, a bank, me, not a bank, is I don't have an ATM in front of my office. My taxes are now higher than my rent. Wow. And I can't negotiate it. I'm like, and so there is one.
So you're stuck?
So yeah, I'm stuck with this cost, which I didn't know was going to be a cost a couple of years ago. And I have to find the money. So where does that come from? Usually, then I can't pay staff, or I can't pay other things. So it eats into your margins as a business. And if you're a restaurant whose margins are like, if you're 2% profit, it's a miracle for those small guys. They're literally living, month to month, and that's how they live. As a small business, if their rent goes up by 10%, they're in the negative.
Done.
What's the point of running a business if you're losing money? I mean, it's not a donation to your community.
But interesting that you point out that there's a bank below you here at Kirk Communications, because on that strip at the end of my street where things are closed, the mom and pop places and the cool little funky spots that used to be like hippie town, the only things that are left are banks, pharmacies, and dollar stores.
Yep.
And a mattress store. That's always perennially going out of business, which is...
Get your mattress now before it's too
Before
late.
it's too late.
Yeah, I know banks, and I also I brought this up at council when I was there a lot too. Banks taking these prime corner lots, and they're just like walls of glass, and there's not very friendly to the neighborhood. That's a whole design thing. But yeah, it's a real problem, and I think so. They did the tax shift decision a couple of months ago, which we talked about. So they took, right now businesses pay 4.5 times what residents pay for taxes. So council made a decision to slash 2% off that over the next 2 years, I think it was.
Yep.
And that's great. That will save businesses a lot of money. That's something that I was calling for the entire time I was there. Like, we need to focus on this tax shift. It's something we can do as a council.
Yeah.
What Sarah Kirby-Young is asking for this is something that they have to ask the province to do. And when I was in council, we asked the province to do this.
And they said,
in fact, Jeff Meggs, who was on council then, who's now in the Premier's office, was one of those people that supported it. And actually, I think it was his motion. He's now in the Premier's office.
maybe?
No, but why he hasn't done it? He knows we need to do it, and he hasn't done it. So it's very frustrating.
But aren't those tax dollars being collected, aren't those property tax dollars hard for government at whatever level to give up?
Well, yes, of course. It's any tax, no government wants to give up a tax. That's why when you introduce a new tax, it's forever.
It's permanent.
It's permanent. And
so how do we backtrack on this at the same time where all of the taxes being scooped up with backhoe loaders over money laundering?
Well,
there's
the pain
a lot
if the property tax, just like in the tax shift, it gets spread to everybody. So you just spread the pain across the city. So that's how it works. The city has a revenue need. It knows exactly how much money. It's about a $1.3 billion budget, and about $700 million of that comes from taxes, from property taxes.
Wow.
So that number doesn't change. So if you reduce business taxes by $100 million, then that $100 million has to come from the residents, or or you have to raise parking. Which is about $50 million a year.
I got to get to parking in a second, because there's some news on that if you ever use those car-to-go, ride-share, whatever services. Right. But going from you never get tax relief once a tax comes into play, what about homes are a human right? And
yes, I had an interesting conversation with one of our. I had gotten a bit
trolls.
of Twitter. No, he's not a troll.
No, he's awesome.
He's actually good.
Just
He takes us on. He takes me on. Michael Mortensen. I don't know his Twitter handle off the top of my head. Anyways, we were talking. We met for coffee, and we were talking about some stuff. And he's very involved in the rental market. And one of the things he brought up, which I thought was really interesting, and it could be a good issue to bring up for the federal government, for the election campaign, is GST and our homes. A human right. We don't pay GST on food. We need food. It's a right that we get to have food, and we need to eat. And so the government doesn't tax food. Well, we also need a home. We need to live in something. And yet we tax GST and PST on any development, any building, any home you buy, all the construction material, everything gets taxed in a building. So if you're building, for example, a rental building, and you want to keep the cost down, well, a big chunk of that money is taxed to the federal government. And if the federal government really cared about housing, you could lop off that GST and immediately save these these people building these housing,
You'd impact
whether they be
affordability.
nonprofits or whoever,
Yeah.
you'd impact the affordability.
Because that goes back to
build.
Make it cheaper to build, because developing is a business, and being a developer is not a not-for-profit situation. No. There has to be profit involved. It's a great deal of work, and it's become a dirty word for many people. Oh, here come the developers. It's like
church groups are developers. Nonprofits are developers.
Exactly.
There are lots of kinds of developers. People have to develop, to build things to live in. And we need to keep in mind how that works and how your cost impacts the price. That goes for condos too. But if we really want to build affordable market rental, we have to reduce the cost of the development. And a good way to do that is reduce taxes. And if the federal government is serious about building housing in this country, then they should start looking at the one tax they can immediately change immediately and save. Of course, then that money will be, I don't even know how much money that is. It'd be good to see an analysis of that.
Because it'll have to be made up somewhere else, which goes
to
back
find
to
the
other
cash.
point. So I think along these same lines, did Don Davies get into some hot water this
Yeah, there's been a bit of a Twitter storm. He went to council on a project that's on Fraser Street in his riding and spoke
Kingsway,
against,
right?
Yeah, he's Kingsway. He's going up against Tamara Taggart.
Tamara Taggart, right.
Taking him on to challenge, very popular MP. So there's a bunch of people tweeting and going after him for coming to council as an MP, speaking against a rental project. Granted, it's a high density. People are saying it doesn't fit the neighborhood, all that kind of stuff. The usual arguments: Granville Street, Broadway.
Don't get me started.
Yes,
no, okay.
It's too high. Anyways,
plenty.
I just feel like here's a guy that's come on, seriously. One of the challenges we have as a city, and the reason we're having to do all these different kinds of policies and find ways to encourage development to build rental housing, is because the federal and provincial governments have let us down for so long that the cities now have been downloaded this responsibility to find ways to encourage development of rental housing. And so this MP, granted he's NDP, so he has no power, but hey, buddy, before you come here and start slamming our policies in our city, come on, you got in a federal election, show us what you're going to do in
Give
this
us an
campaign.
alternative.
Because right now, it's because of the federal government and the provincial government that we are in this situation, I believe. It has a lot to do with, money laundering, all those things, but those are also things that the federal government controls.
Yeah, and knew about.
So
possibly,
so
allegedly.
I just felt, and so he's being slammed, and I would say that Tamara Taggart might want to leverage that as an opportunity for
political advice for you there too.
Yeah.
I threw out a little bit of a gauntlet in the middle this week.
You did. You brought up my favorite
It's
subject.
Your favorite subject. So
I love this subject.
You read the column. Obviously, we've talked about this before. But it was heading out to the valley. I was taking my son out to go to a friend's place in Yarrow. I haven't been to Yarrow. I don't even know the last time. My dad grew up out Harrison Hot Springs Way in Chilliwack. Yep. My dad was born out there. It was like that's.
So it's out in the valley. Somewhere.
Way out in the valley,
like Hope. Like where is it?
It's before Hope, but it's like you're 10 minutes from Cultus Lake.
Okay.
So I get out there. I'm like, I need some gas. Pull over at the gas station. Try and use my card. It goes, come inside. I'm like, okay. Inside I go. It's a unicorn. There is a young woman standing behind a counter. That's your regular gas counter. Behind her, though, is a wall of full-size 26ers of booze. And
you're thinking, I'm driving? I need one of those.
No, I'm thinking, what is this? Where am I? And I was thinking, that's not a government uniform. Because I'm so trained to be like...
And this is not a fancy wine store.
This is not my beautiful house. And then I walk outside, and I said to my son, I said, oh my, this is a unicorn. And he goes, what is it? I'm like, that's a liquor store in there. And he's like, what?
Along with other groceries and your gas.
It's your typical gas station setup with that.
This is illegal.
And then across the street in Yarrow, another gas station liquor store.
Really? Oh,
and then
I didn't know that. I
pull out of the driveway, and next to the gas station liquor store that I just bought gas in is a grocery store liquor store. Same block.
Yarrow likes to party.
But here's the deal. For all the naysayers who are like, you need to restrict, put behind glass kid gloves only on certain days,
chaos
whatever.
will ensue.
Post-apocalyptic
yes,
chaos.
We're all going to die.
Did not hit Yarrow. They're just fine.
I have not seen a lot of drunkenness stories about Yarrow.
Yeah. But then I went through the liquor laws, BC liquor laws, and it's very much up to municipalities, I guess, to police. Mm-hmm. And I guess Yarrow's like, okay. And the crazy part is you can drink in your home, on your own property, outside on your patio on your own property, or where there are permits or licensed premises or campsites. I'm like, or campsites.
That's called camping to me, actually. When
so if I take a tent to the beach.
Oh, hey, really? That's you think that's how?
No, it's campsites. It's camping. Like if you're at a camp.
I would like to see you in a debate with a cop about that.
Oh, I debated.
Excuse me, officer. I have a tent.
I have a tent. I am staying the night here on the public beach. No, but it's drinking responsibly. I know Claire Martin, a good friend of all of ours, a former meteorologist at the CBC and now with Environment Canada. She and her now husband were at Lonsdale Quay, blanket on the ground, playing cards with one small Palm Bay each. They got a $230 fine. Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Is Palm Bay even got alcohol in it?
Probably not. Claire's the least of the drinkers
Seriously,
of all the people
if you're getting
I know.
drunk on Palm Bay,
right? What's wrong with you?
Palm Bay. It's like that's not.
But the people who push back say, coastal health or the health.
Yes,
Fraser
we had
Health
them
Coastal
speak.
Health.
When I was on council, they'd come there, they'd speak, they would say, basically, it's a slippery slope. You start with alcohol, or if you have a disease that you drink, it's going to lead to more and more consumption and more, and that leads to drugs and et cetera, et cetera. And I would sit there going, really? And what really drove me crazy, actually, they would also come to a council meeting 2 weeks later, I remember, speaking on behalf of and supportive of the marijuana industry and allowing retail stores across the city. I'm like, and I would say, I don't get it. How can you say it's okay to open up all these marijuana retail stores, but you're saying it's not okay to have a wine store at Urban Fair in downtown Vancouver? I don't get it. That's different.
But that's how is it different? The piece that really makes me crazy is how many liquor stores are right next door to a grocery store. So how often do you go, I get my groceries, take it to the car, then you go in, you get your bottle of Chardonnay, you bring that out, you get in your car, you drive away, you go home, whatever. And they're saying that wall in between is the difference between you being an addict or not being an addict. And I think we're responsible enough. And the people that are addicted, that are living with a disease, because I have many alcoholics in my family and in my circle, and it's heartbreaking.
Absolutely.
But let me tell you what, that wall does nothing to save them from themselves in their darkest of moments. Mm-hmm. We need for healthcare to take care of that
thing
and stop making it about where it's sold, because really what it's about is government employees in liquor stores and control over the thing and the stuff and the whatever. And it's a nanny state. You said that earlier.
I believe, and I always found it surprising, and I've said this before, that Vision Vancouver here, when they were in office and the provincial government changed the rules, gave the power to cities. Vision was very, very, they were so against alcohol.
Purist.
They're purist. They were, and it was bizarre to me, because I thought they're the party. Aren't they the party that represent the hipsters?
Are they just all smoking
pot? Why am I the one?
Yeah,
I guess. I mean, I'm the one like, come on, I want a glass of wine on the beach. What's the big deal?
But it's okay if they sell it to you. Because if you buy the wine at the concession stand, you're not going to become an alcoholic. If you buy the $12 4-ounce glass of crappy wine that they've decided to put there, that's okay. But if you bring yours from home, I don't get it, because we've been to Europe.
And this fear of madness
Spain.
on the beaches. Yes, Europe, even Wreck Beach locally. You go to Wreck Beach. I've been there. I admit I don't get naked. So don't get your cameras.
What do you know about this Wreck Beach thing?
You're allowed to wear shorts there if you want too much, says Amanda. But you can order anything you want there. And
one of the best margaritas and falafels I've ever had in my life was at Wreck Beach.
That's right.
Again,
great,
fully
the
closed.
The food is amazing, the beer, but then the cops come down and you have to hide your booze or dump it out.
But you know it.
There's a big team, tag team, cops are coming.
Of course.
It's but the thing is that the people down there police it themselves. If people get unruly,
it's like, dude, time to go.
Yeah, like you know what, you ruin it for all of us. Come on. And so you go, you leave. And that is the way it works. It's the same argument I always use for Granville Street when I say, if we just had more eyeballs on the street, if we expanded patios, made people have dinner, being out there on Granville, you'd have less of the chaos. People would say, what are you doing? Come on.
You're wrecking it for the rest of us, you hooligan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's what I want. When I see people...
And you had that example, because you talked about that in your column.
I did.
About the Catalano versus Greek days.
Yeah. So Greek days, thank you. You can find the column in its entirety at theorca.ca. It's not really bossy or yelly or anything. It's just, can we just talk about this middle ground here? Because Greek Days happens on West Broadway. Catalano Days happens on West 4th Avenue.
Same kind of
exact same thing. Actually, they're, I would say identical.
Yeah. Both fun.
I love them.
Great.
Love both of them. But the big difference is Greek Days, at one point, everybody was pushed onto patios, and it ruined Greek Days. Because you had to be in a restaurant to drink. So binge drinking happened. Everybody climbed into a restaurant first thing in the morning and stayed there all day and got smashed. And then they're like, maybe this isn't the best idea. And then they said, you can buy beer with food. So you'd buy a stick of souvlaki, you get a beer. Next time you get a calamari, you get the beer. You get the little spanakopita, you get a beer. And now it's
You're
a little bit
literally describing the day I had there, right there.
delicious.
Yes.
So Catalano days, just this past weekend, walking down at beautiful, packed, happy people, presenting, clearly of age, 4 guys with solo cups, the red solo cups, walking through the crowd, not causing any problems at all. There are other people with wine or beer in their Starbucks cup or their Tim Hortons or whatever.
Yes,
but they just had a solo cup because they stopped at Darby's on the way, poured the one beer, and then walked. Whatever.
Not the smartest guys in town, but
But the bike cops, and all due respect to cops, the law is the law, but they actually were like, hey, what's in those cups? And the guys are like, it's good, and they keep walking. Cops hopped off their bikes, turned around, pushed through the crowd, got to these 4 guys, and said, well, they were doing nothing. They're like, yeah, we're good, buddy. We're good. And then we walked further up the way, and there is the mother of all lineups to the beer garden. And the beer garden looks like, I don't know, a nightmare.
To wrap it up, our shit show, shall we say.
That's it.
To bring it full circle for the day.
Go.
Yeah, that's what happens to beer tents. You stay all day, and you get in the sun, and you're like, oh.
Just be responsible. Allow people, and we did a poll because I filled in for Simi Sarah, as I said, and that was our hot question of the day. 80% of people agree that,
which is actually the data the city of Vancouver presented to City Council to talk about this when I was there, and the approval rating for drinking on beaches and things. 80% of people in Vancouver saying it's okay.
Why don't we do it and see if it works instead of the way that it's sort of been that. It's the hooligans are calling. Enough of the nanny state.
Loosen up, man.
Enough of that for George
_
Affleck at Jody with a Y Vance. Subscribe to the Fin at the Orca.ca. We'll see you next time on UnSpun.